The loud, sharp sound of a hand hitting skin suddenly made the whole great hall become completely quiet. Lisa took a few steps back because she felt surprised and hurt. She quickly put her hand on her stinging cheek. She could taste a metallic, salty flavor of blood inside her mouth. Right there in front of her stood David. He was her special fated mate, and also the powerful Alpha King. His chest was moving up and down very fast because he felt so much misplaced anger. Just behind him, a woman named Sienna was holding tightly onto his arm. She looked like she was very scared, but it seemed like she was only pretending to feel that way. "You will never speak to her that way again," David said in a low, angry growl. His eyes changed to a cold and unfamiliar shiny golden color. He had not just chosen another woman over Lisa. He had actually hit his own Luna because of this other woman. All the people in the pack watched everything in a heavy, suffocating silence. Lisa did not start crying at all. She made her back very straight and slowly lowered her hand from her face. "I will not," she whispered softly. Her voice carried a cold and final feeling that made the temperature in the big hall feel like it dropped suddenly. "Because I will never speak to either of you again." The silence in the great hall stayed unbroken as Lisa turned around on her heel. The clear clicking sound of her boots against the shiny polished marble floor echoed loudly through the room. It sounded like a judge hitting a wooden hammer to make a final decision that no one had seen coming. She did not run away quickly. She did not look back even once. Her body posture stayed very rigid and perfect, which was a big contrast to the messy, chaotic way her soul felt like it was breaking into many small pieces inside her. The special mate bond, which was like an invisible thread that had kept her connected to David for 5 long years, now twisted violently and painfully in her chest. It felt exactly like a rusty old hook had caught behind her ribs, and was being pulled out very slowly and with great pain. She swallowed down the bad, sour taste rising in her throat. She kept her chin held high as she walked past the heavy oak doors that led out of the royal wing. Once she was inside their old shared chambers, which now felt like only his chambers, the strong face she had been showing started to crack just a tiny bit. Lisa moved with a scary kind of mechanical efficiency, like a robot that would not stop working. She walked right past the big, sprawling walk-in closet that was full of soft silks and shiny jewels. All those nice things had been bought with the kingdom's wealth. Instead of looking at them, she knelt down beside the heavy oak chest that sat at the foot of the big bed. She pulled out an old, battered leather duffel bag. She had not used this bag since her earlier days when she worked as a border patrol warrior, long before David had been crowned as king. She carefully packed 3 pairs of dark, strong denim jeans, some very durable shirts that could handle tough work, warm thermal layers for cold times, and 1 pair of her old, worn combat boots. She took no jewelry at all. She took no pretty dresses. She took nothing that had the special crest or sign of the Silver Moon pack on it. The door made a small clicking sound as it opened. A strong scent of rain-washed pine trees, mixed with ozone, suddenly filled the room. It felt thick and made it hard to breathe. It was David. "Lisa, stop being so dramatic," he said. His voice was low and had the tired sound of a parent who was scolding a child who was causing trouble. He leaned against the doorframe with his arms crossed over his chest. He did not look like he felt sorry. He looked annoyed instead. "You pushed her. Sienna is a fragile Omega. She does not have your kind of resilience or strength. You forced my hand and made me do what I did." Lisa paused for a moment while she was holding a heavy wool sweater in her hands. She did not turn around to face him. The skin on her left cheek throbbed with a hot. Over the past 6 months, Sienna had slowly and carefully taken apart Lisa's authority. She had whispered bad, poisonous ideas into David's ear. She played the part of a victim, while she secretly worked to send away Lisa's closest friends and allies. "I only told her to stop sitting in the Luna's special chair during the council meetings," Lisa said. Her voice sounded eerily calm and steady. That is not the same as pushing someone. That is simply enforcing the ancient laws that you promised to follow and uphold when you became king. It is just a chair, David snapped back quickly. He took one step further into the room. She likes the nice view of the gardens from that spot. Why must you turn every small thing into a big battle about who is in charge? You are my mate, Lisa. Your position is supposed to be secure. Why can you not just show a little grace and kindness? Lisa finally turned around to look at him. The words he wanted to say died right there in his throat. Perhaps it was the complete lack of any tears in her eyes. Or perhaps it was the dark, bruising mark from his hand that was already showing clearly across her pale skin. For one very short second, the golden look of dominance in his eyes flickered and changed. It was replaced by a small ghost of horror at what he had done. But his pride, which was a much bigger beast than his sense of right and wrong, quickly swallowed up that small feeling of horror. "Put the bag away," he commanded in a strong voice. He used the special alpha timbre, which was a subtle sound wave meant to make people feel like they had to obey. Lisa felt the vibration go deep into her bones, but the mate bond, which had been damaged by his physical action, gave her a strange kind of protection now. She zipped the duffel bag closed with a quick motion. The metallic zip sound felt very loud and final in the quiet room. "My position was never truly secure," Lisa said quietly. She slung the strap of the bag over her shoulder. "A Luna is like the heart of the entire pack. You just struck that heart in order to protect a parasite that only takes from others. You have already made your choice, David. I am simply making my own choice now." "You cannot leave," he said. He scoffed, even though a small thread of uncertainty made his jaw tighten. "You are bound to me by the mate connection. You will not make it even 2 days past the borders before the bond sickness makes you fall to your knees. You will come crawling back to me." Lisa walked toward the door. As she passed right by him, she did not flinch or pull away at all. She simply looked up and met his eyes with a cold, dead emptiness that reminded one of an old graveyard. "I would rather die coughing up my own blood in the neutral wild zone than spend another single night sharing a bed with a coward who acts this way." She did not wait to hear what he might say next. She stepped out of the room and left the Alpha King standing there all alone in his fancy, opulent cage of a room. As she went down the servants' stairwell to avoid the main hall, she felt the first sharp and breathtaking spasm from the bond that was starting to sever. She stumbled a little, but caught herself on the cold stone railing. She gripped that cold stone very tightly until her knuckles turned white. She breathed slowly through the terrible pain and kept on walking forward. The sky seemed to weep for her with rain, even though Lisa herself refused to let even one tear fall from her eyes. The rain started as a light misty drizzle when she walked through the southern gates. It changed into a heavy torrential downpour by the time she reached the dense and ancient pine trees in the borderlands. 3 full hours had now passed since she left. The physical pain of walking away from a fated mate was something well known and written about in old werewolf stories and lore. But reading those words in old books was very different from actually feeling the pain in real life. It felt like trying to walk through invisible, thick, knee-deep mud while breathing in sharp pieces of shattered glass. Every single mile she put between herself and David made the invisible, ethereal tether that connected their souls stretch, fray, and break apart, bit by bit, at a tiny level. Her vision started to blur, and the edges of the dark forest seemed to swim around in the heavy rain. The thick mud sucked at her boots and tried to pull her down into the wet earth. She was running only on pure adrenaline and a cold, hard, crystallized feeling of fury that gave her the power to keep moving toward the river she needed to cross. The Roaring Fork River acted as the natural boundary that separated the Silver Moon Packlands from the Obsidian Ridge territory, which belonged to Alpha Kael. Stories about Kael, people often called him Kael, were told to little pups to stop them from wandering too far into the woods. They called him the Shadow Wolf. He was known as a brutal and uncompromising warlord who had fought and taken the throne from his own uncle. The Silver Moon Pack and the Obsidian Ridge had been stuck in a long, cold war for a full decade. If David's patrol guards found her in this area, they would surely drag her back. If Kael's patrols found her instead, she was not sure what would happen. But at this difficult moment, facing an unknown monster in the dark felt much better than staying with the monster she already knew in the light. Lisa finally reached the riverbank after pushing through the pain. The water in the river was swollen high and very violent. It churned with white frothy waves and carried broken branches along with it. There was no bridge at this spot. There were only a series of very slick and jagged stepping stones that would need perfect balance and care to cross. Another strong spasm of pain hit her hard. It felt like something was tearing violently right behind her sternum bone. Lisa dropped down to one knee in the cold mud. She gasped loudly as a raw, choked sound finally escaped from her throat. Her inner wolf made a small whimpering sound inside her mind. The wolf felt confused and very scared because of the sudden rejection from their mate. Her voice got lost in the loud roar of the rain and the rushing river. She forced her body to stand upright, even though her legs were shaking violently. She carefully stepped onto the first wet stone. Her boots slipped a little on the slick surface, but she caught her balance by waving her arms. She jumped to the second stone, then the third one. When she reached the fourth stone, a big wave of dizziness washed over her whole body. The mate bond snapped a little more. Black spots started dancing in front of her eyes. She missed the fifth stone completely. Lisa fell with a splash into the freezing, turbulent water of the river. The strong current immediately dragged her under the surface. The icy cold shocked all the air out of her lungs. She thrashed and fought hard with her arms and legs. Her heavy duffel bag acted like an anchor pulling her down. She managed to slip the strap off her shoulder and let the bag go, abandoning her few remaining possessions to the river. She kicked her legs frantically toward the opposite shore. Her hands scraped against sharp rocks under the water. Finally, she pulled her heavy, soaked body up onto the muddy embankment on the side of Obsidian Ridge territory. It was heaving as the rain continued to batter her face. She was still alive. She had successfully crossed the bloodline border. Before she could catch her breath properly, a low, deep guttural growl vibrated through the wet earth beneath her. Lisa froze in place. Very slowly, she turned her head to look. 4 massive wolves emerged from the shadows of the tree line. They did not bark loudly. They did not show off or posture. They moved with exact military precision and fanned out to form a circle around her. They were terrifyingly large animals. Their coats were slick and wet from the rain. Their eyes glowed with serious, lethal intent. The largest wolf among them, one with fur the color of midnight smoke, stepped forward. As it moved, its bones cracked and shifted in a fast, fluid motion. Within just a few seconds, a tall man stood where the big wolf had been. He was dressed in dark tactical pants and a heavy waterproof jacket. He was taller than David and much broader in build. He radiated a quiet but crushing power that made the air around him feel heavy. His hair was dark and wet, sticking to a face that looked sharp, covered in scars, and very harsh in a strong way. This was Alpha Kael. He did not yell at her. He did not immediately demand to know her business. He stepped closer to her. His dark eyes carefully swept over her soaked and shivering body. His gaze stopped abruptly on the dark, hand-shaped bruise that marked her left cheek. The silence between them stretched out, filled only with the constant sound of the pouring rain. Kael crouched down in the mud right beside her. His expression was hard to read. "You're a long way from the ivory tower, little queen." Kael's voice came out as a low, rough rasp, like 2 stones grinding together. "And you look like you're dying." Lisa met his eyes without looking away. She refused to bare her neck in submission. "I'm not dying," she rasped back. "I'm surviving." A muscle moved in Kael's jaw. He stared at the bruise on her face for a second longer. A dark and dangerous storm seemed to build in his eyes. Then he stood up straight. He shrugged off his own heavy, dry outer jacket and dropped it gently over her shivering shoulders to warm her. "Bring her," Kael ordered his men without even looking back. He turned and started walking toward the deep woods. She was brought in as a guest and not as a prisoner. The world came back to Lisa in small pieces and fragments. She noticed the smell of burning cedar wood. She heard the soft, rhythmic drumming of rain hitting heavy glass windows. She smelled the subtle earthy scents of healing herbs, like yarrow and comfrey, mixed with old paper. This was very different from the clean but sterile perfumed air that filled David's fancy palace. Lisa opened her eyes very slowly. The ceiling high above her was made of massive dark wooden beams. She was lying comfortably in a large bed that was covered with heavy furs and thick woolen blankets. Her wet clothes had been changed. She now wore an oversized but incredibly soft cotton shirt. She tried to sit up, but a sharp phantom pain spread out from her chest. It was the lingering ache from the stretched and damaged mate bond. She winced and pressed one hand against her sternum. "Don't push it," a calm voice said. "Your body temperature dropped too low, and your spirit is fractured." Lisa's head turned quickly toward the voice. An older woman with iron-gray hair braided neatly down her back sat in a leather armchair near a big stone fireplace. She was grinding some dried herbs inside a mortar with steady movements. "Where am I?" Lisa's voice sounded hoarse. Her throat felt raw from all the river water she had swallowed. "You are in the obsidian stronghold," the woman answered calmly, without looking up from her work. "My name is Alara. I am the pack healer here. Alpha Kael brought you in last night. You have been unconscious for 14 hours. 14 hours. A quick flash of panic rose in Lisa's chest. Had David noticed she was really gone? Had he already sent trackers after her? As if her growing worry had called him, the heavy wooden door to the room opened with a soft click. Alpha Kael stepped inside. In the warm, dim light from the fireplace, he looked less like a wild beast and more like a tired but strong soldier. He wore simple dark clothes and moved with silent grace that hid how big and powerful he really was. He carried a ceramic mug, with steam rising slowly from it in lazy curls. He nodded politely to Alara. She gathered her mortar and pestle and quietly left the room, closing the door softly. Kael pulled up a heavy wooden stool and sat down near the bed. He held out the mug. "Drink. It is willow bark and honey. It will help with the inflammation and pain." Lisa hesitated for a moment. Her eyes moved from the mug to his face. She was the Luna from his enemy's pack. He had every reason to harm her or use her. But his gaze showed no evil intent. It was observant and smart, but strangely free of the arrogant pride that David always showed. She reached out with a still trembling hand and took the mug. Their fingers brushed lightly, and a sudden warm spark of static jumped up her arm and settled deep in her chest. Lisa gasped a little and pulled her hand back to hold the warm mug safely. "Thank you," she murmured, and took a slow sip. The drink tasted bitter, but the warmth felt wonderful as it slid down her sore throat. "My border patrols found pieces of a leather bag washed up along the riverbank," Kael said. His voice was a low, soothing rumble. "Nothing inside could be saved. You crossed the roaring fork during a dangerous flash flood. That was either incredibly brave or incredibly foolish." "It was necessary," Lisa replied. She kept her eyes on the dark liquid in the mug. Kael leaned forward a bit and rested his forearms on his knees. "I know exactly who you are, Lisa. The whole continent knows the Luna from the Silver Moon Pack. What I do not know is why the Alpha King's fated mate nearly drowned herself trying to sneak into my territory at night while carrying the clear mark of a man's hand on her face." The directness of his words made her flinch slightly. She reached up and touched the tender, swollen skin on her cheek. Did he do this? Kael's voice became lower and deeper. The temperature in the room seemed to grow colder as his natural protective alpha instincts rose up. Lisa could have made up a story. She could have said it was from training or a fall, but the deep exhaustion in her body wanted the truth to come out. Yes, she said. Her voice was barely a whisper, yet it sounded loud in the quiet room. He chose an Omega over me. When I demanded that he respect the pack laws, he struck me to make me stay silent. A heavy silence filled the room. It was not the bad, suffocating silence from David's great hall. This was a thoughtful, deep quiet. Kael stared into the dancing flames of the fire. The orange light moved across the pale scars on his jaw. "And so you left," Kael said. He did not ask it like a question. He simply understood. "I left," Lisa confirmed. She lifted her chin and found a small piece of her old strength returning. "I have nothing left. No pack, no title, no extra clothes, except what I am wearing now. If you plan to use me as a hostage to negotiate with David, I must warn you that he will not make any bargain for me. He believes I will crawl back when the bond sickness gets too bad." Kael slowly turned his head to look directly at her. The strong intensity in his dark eyes held her in place. "I do not take hostages, Lisa, and I do not bargain with cowards who strike their own mates," he said softly. He stood up, towering over the bed. Yet Lisa felt no fear at all. "You are not a prisoner here. You are under my roof and under my protection. Rest now. Let the broken bond finish severing. You are safe here in the shadows." As he walked toward the door, Lisa felt a small shift happening deep inside her. The painful pull from the east, where David was, still burned. But in this room, with the quiet strength of the shadow wolf nearby, she felt the very first tiny warm ember of something new and different starting to grow. The bond sickness did not sneak in quietly. It crashed over Lisa like a huge tidal wave made of broken glass. By the evening of her second day in the Obsidian stronghold, the earlier dull ache in her chest had changed into violent, tearing pain. She lay in the heavy fur-lined bed, thrashing around, while covered in cold, sour sweat. Her body temperature dropped low and then spiked high again. Her inner wolf howled sadly in the back of her mind, feeling lost in the empty space where David's presence used to be. "Hold her down," Alara's voice cut through the foggy red pain that filled Lisa's mind. "If she keeps thrashing, she might tear a muscle. The fever is cooking her from the inside." Firm, strong hands pinned Lisa's shoulders gently but securely to the mattress. They were too big to belong to the healer. Through her blurry, fevered eyes, Lisa saw the sharp, scarred jaw of Alpha Kael. He was not using any Alpha command voice to force her. He was simply using his own physical strength to keep her anchored safely, while her spirit tried to rip itself apart. "Breathe, Lisa," Kael's rough, deep voice vibrated through her. It was a steady sound that fought against the storm inside her body. "The tether is snapping. Let it go. Stop fighting the break." "It burns," she choked out. Her back arched as an invisible blade seemed to twist between her ribs. She reached out blindly, her fingers dug into Kael's forearm. She expected him to pull away because David had always hated any show of weakness. Instead, Kael shifted and sat on the edge of the bed. He gently uncurled her tight grip and held her hand safely in both of his large hands. "I know," Kael murmured. His dark eyes stayed fixed on her pale face. "A severing feels worse than real death sometimes, but you will survive this. You are stronger than the man who caused it." As he held her hands, the strange warm spark from the four returned. It was not the heavy, demanding pull of the old fated bond with David. It was something gentler, a grounding warmth, like touching a sun-warmed stone after a cold winter. It soaked into her skin and calmed her scared inner wolf just enough. Lisa gasped. Her eyes closed as the pain eased a little. Exhaustion pulled her into a deep, dreamless sleep. Kael kept holding her hand until her breathing became steady and calm. Many hours later, 50 miles to the east, in the fancy royal wing of the Silver Moon Pack, Alpha King David was pacing back and forth angrily. "It has been 3 days," David snapped. He kicked a soft velvet ottoman across the room, and it shattered a pretty crystal vase against the wall. She should not be able to stay away this long. The bond sickness should have driven her crazy by now. She should be crawling back to the gates, begging. Sienna lounged lazily on the edge of the big four-poster bed. She wore one of Lisa's old silk robes. She filed her nails carefully and made a fake sympathetic sigh. "Perhaps she found a place to hide, David. You know how stubborn she can be. She is just trying to embarrass you and make a big show." David stopped pacing. His jaw was clenched so tightly that his teeth ground together. He walked to the window and stared out at the rain that still had not stopped. "She has no money. She has no allies because I already sent them away," he muttered. He touched his own chest over his heart. There was a small dull ache there, but nothing too bad. As the Alpha King, his power protected him from the worst pain. While Lisa felt most of the hurt, he ordered his men to search. "Send Thorn to the border," David commanded. His eyes narrowed as he looked west. If she crossed the river, the Shadow Dwellers might have her. Or worse, Kael might. "I will not let that wild man hold what belongs to me." Sienna stopped filing her nails. A quick look of real irritation crossed her face. "Property? David, just let her go. You do not need her. You have me now." David turned and looked at the beautiful but fragile Omega. She was what a king was supposed to want, submissive and dependent. But looking at her now, he felt a strange, empty feeling. "She is the Luna," he said coldly. His eyes flashed golden, "and no one walks away from the king." By the 5th day, the bad fever finally broke for Lisa. She woke up in a quiet, empty room. The heavy weight in her chest had changed into a big, hollow numbness. The bond with David was completely gone now. For 5 years she had always felt his emotions around her, his pride, his irritation, and his small moments of happiness. Now there was only deep silence. She sat up slowly. Her muscles felt weak from not moving, but her mind felt surprisingly clear. For the first time in many months, she was not worrying about David's moods or fixing Sienna's tricks. She saw fresh, practical clothes folded neatly at the foot of the bed. Dark tactical pants, a heavy gray shirt, and sturdy boots. These were very different from the soft pastel dresses David had liked her to wear. Lisa dressed herself carefully, using the walls to help her balance as she left the healer's area. The Obsidian Stronghold was a huge fortress built right into the side of a granite mountain. There were no fancy marble stairs or golden lights. The halls were lit by simple iron torches. The air smelled of wood smoke, clean steel, and fresh pine. It was a place made for real strength and war, not for showing off. She followed the low sound of voices down a wide stone corridor until she reached a heavy oak door that was slightly open. Inside, a big map of the land lay on a strong table. Kael stood at the head, surrounded by 6 tough, scarred warriors. The air felt tense, like something violent might happen soon. "David has moved 2 big groups of soldiers to the east side of the river," one warrior with a scar on his nose was saying. He pointed with a knife at the map. "He claims we took his Luna. He demands she comes back, or he will call it war." Kael leaned over the table. "Let him think what he wants. We do not give back people who run from abuse." The warriors talked more about the danger. Then Lisa stepped into the room. She looked pale and tired, but she carried the strong presence of a real leader. The warriors turned to look. Kael listened carefully as she gave smart advice about the best place the enemy would try to cross. He trusted her words and gave orders to follow her plan. The warriors began to respect her mind and courage. Later, when the Silver Moon representatives came to the gates, Kael stood strong beside her. He protected her fully and sent the messengers away with clear warnings. Lisa felt truly safe and valued. In the important battle at the narrow mountain pass, Lisa helped with the strategy from the ridge. David's soldiers, including the king himself, were trapped by the smart plan. They had to retreat in shame, without any fight. The Obsidian Pack celebrated the bloodless victory. Warriors thanked Lisa and called her a smart tactician. Kael spoke to her privately on a balcony under the stars. He asked her to stay, not as a guest, but as his true equal partner. She agreed, and a new healthy bond, based on respect, began to grow between them. 6 months passed. The old Silver Moon Pack grew weak and lost many members. People came to the Obsidian Ridge seeking safety. Under a big full moon, the whole pack gathered for a special ceremony. Lisa and Kael stood together as true leaders. They made simple promises of equality. The crowd cheered loudly. Their howls joined together and echoed across the land. Far away, David heard the sound and felt deep regret. He understood that hitting his mate had destroyed his own kingdom. He had lost a Luna, but helped create a powerful queen. In the end, Lisa left the bad pack and became the respected Luna of the rival Alpha. Thanks for watching. Kindly subscribe so you never miss a new daily love story. Until next time, keep believing in love.